Be all right. All right, today we've got Mr. Erger. We're in his post conference and talk to him. I appreciate you hanging with me. We've had some trying times. I've been out with quarantine. My wife tested positive, so I really appreciate you sticking with me in this deal and, like I said, being flexible and really working with me. Mr. Erger is new to our campus this year. He's in the Alternative Serve program. I've got 6 other teachers under my wing that I'm their mentor to, so I'm working close with Mr. Erger and 5 other teachers as we speak. So we don't have a big teaching staff, but being the instructional leader, this is one of the roles that I took on that I really wanted, just so I could start kind of learning the curriculum and seeing different teachers, but also shaping and molding and helping new teachers that are on the staff. So 5 other teachers are also in the Alternative Serve program, so we definitely have some challenges in front of us, just trying to shape and mold these teachers and coach them up to get them in the right situation to present materials to our kids, you know, and you couldn't have more trying times with the COVID issues that are going on, and they're learning Google Classroom, they're learning the calculator. I mean, just the many obstacles that they face already. So Mr. Erger agreed to let me observe him and work with his math students, and so we're going to get straight into it. And again, I appreciate you for letting me do this and helping me out during my coursework. I know it's another extra task that we had to do, but I sure appreciate you, and I want you to know that. So start off, the basic simple question, how do you feel that the lesson went?
You know, I thought it went pretty well. I mean, I thought like I was pretty clear on how I instructed. And then, you know, I sent them to the board, which is one of the things I've learned is really effective, is I send them to the board in teams.
Right.
And I try to pair them up with maybe a faster learner with a slower learner. And then some of the people are actually able to teach the other kids. Some
Right.
kids teach kids, which is great.
Right.
And a few people at the desk. And I thought it went well because I thought I explained well. And when I walked around, they seemed to be implementing the teaching pretty well.
Yeah. And one of the things that I failed to do, I didn't rotate the camera. I had the camera set where you were teaching as I was sitting here monitoring it. And I thought of it late, you know, to move the camera. So unfortunately, we won't see a bunch of that in the video, but you did a good job at getting around to the kids during their individual practice and work with it. And I thought the group setup was perfect because, like you said, those kids that aren't as strong have a partner that can help kind of coach them as well. And, you know, we rely, I know from the coaching standpoint, you know, I rely on some kids helping teach, you know, to get through too. So that's perfect. So jumping right in, how do you decide on the activities, materials, and assessments that are appropriate for diverse learners?
You know, it's really been a trial of error that I've come up with, like different things.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And I think the most effective thing I've come up with is putting them at the board.
Right.
When we did it, I put them all at the board. One, math is kind of unfun, and so occasionally it's a little more fun for them to get up at the board. And then when I get them up at the board, you know, I can sense like where they are better.
Right.
Than like just walking around and seeing them at the paper. And that's on the diversity. Then I can look and say, these are my slower learners, take some more time.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the biggest challenge you have coming in being a first-year teacher, you know, for me, I've been here, so I kind of know most of the kids because I've had them over time. I know the background that they come from.
Right.
And, you know, I've seen their assessment data, whether it's their TPAR, and I kind of can gauge where they are as far as their knowledge and their skill level, whereas completely somebody new that has no idea getting into the teaching profession, you know, and that's one of the things that we look at to help get those slower learners up to where they need to be. But that's the good thing about the STAR test and whatnot, because we get that assessment data, and so we can help those guys. Not even just the ones that are on the low end, but the ones that are in the middle, you know, each level stepping up, that we can help them. So right. that's good for us to know. So what are some ways you communicate to your classroom about the school goals and the stakeholders?
Oh, you know, initially the biggest thing is I put out a syllabus. And so the syllabus just kind of explained what it is we're trying to accomplish and what we're trying to do.
Right.
And then individually in the class, I go over it with them. And because with the COVID, we have Google Classroom, so I can communicate them with you know, I can put out things on Google Classroom occasionally to all of them.
Right.
And I have a little transition of going, okay, I need to modify the rule a little bit here, or
Right.
do something. That's been pretty effective as well.
Yeah, definitely Google Classroom has been, I mean, that's new for me too. I'm not a big technology person, you know, going through college and work, I'm still not
Right.
the biggest technology fan. And so I'm getting used to that as well. I had a little practice in the spring with it, but I think you're right on target with the communication aspect of things. The more we can communicate with the kids, the more that the kids' parents can see as well, you know, that syllabus, they know that expectation and where we want them to be. So that's right on target in my opinion, and I like the syllabus aspect of things too. Even going through college course right now, I mean, that lets me know exactly when things are due, what's coming down, where my level should be. So, all right, how we this lesson demonstrate your familiarity with students' prior knowledge, life experience, and interests. Kind of already hit on it. You know, we're still kind of learning the kids. I mean, we're
Right. Yeah, I don't know the kids 100%, so I've been here a few months, but you know, I try to make the lesson. You know, I probably lean more towards my slower students, my medium and slower students, making sure that they're grasping things and learning the process of doing math. And I struggle a little bit more at challenging my smarter kids, you know, or more driven kids, because
still trying to find ways to reach their interests.
yeah, it's just, you know, part of it's time. I'm brand new and I'm teaching 4 different math courses, and it's hard for me to find time to do everything I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, and that's challenging on a first-year person, you know, coming into a small school district. You know, we have multiple preps, we wear many hats. And that's one of the fine lines, you know, being in that small school district where you've got to try to reach every one of those, and it's challenging. It is.
Yeah,
That's been challenging for me. I teach multiple preps as well, you know, and that's all of us.
And honestly, I think, like, you know, next year I'll be a little bit better.
Exactly.
Because it's like, well, I know the material a little bit more,
Yeah,
and I can think about how can I do this. And there's only so much time. Like, I have to grade, I have to do all this, and trying to, you know, it's a constant adjustment. What do I do here?
So how do you assess the students' learning styles and needs?
You know, some of it's just looking at the tests. Like, I give tests and I look at the test and see how they actually did on the test. And again, I go back to getting them up at the board. You know, what we did was that was a more fun exercise. I get them all up at the board. But occasionally I get a couple of them up at the board and have them go through the lesson and explain it to the class. And then sometimes I can see where it is they don't understand something.
Right.
Because different people don't understand or make you know, and I can sort of analyze it that way.
So how are students' backgrounds, language, and cultural differences used to plan for your instruction?
You know, I don't have a lot of that. We're a pretty homogeneous school. I don't have strictly Spanish-speaking kids, you know. I just have kids, you know, there's probably certain kids that have a little bit different socioeconomic things, but not so much that, you know, it's a big problem. And then there's little things. You know, I just went ahead and bought paper, graph paper. I bought pencils. It's like, you don't have a pencil, here's one, take it. There's paper if you don't have paper.
A lot of low income.
You know, a lot of low income here.
And so, yeah, those kids that feel the need, that need stuff, you know, our churches do a really good job at
they help and supply us stuff, and then I have my own stuff. And there's stuff that, you know, we can get to and give them a folder or whatever we need to and not embarrass them. You know, say, hey, I got a folder for you.
Pretty discreet. So
there's a little bit of that comes in.
That's the good thing about the small school, is how discreet we are in taking care of not only our kids, but our staff and our families, our community members, you know, our stakeholders that are invested in our school. So that's what's kept me here, you know, the longest, but you're right, we don't have a lot of diversity, but the kids that we have are good kids, but, you know, they can be kids that want to be involved and needed, and so that's good to show them, hey, we're here to support you, so I like it. Why is it important for teachers to ask higher order questions during a lesson?
Oh, you know, that's probably something I struggle with a little bit, to tell you the truth. Somewhat it's just because it's math, but, you know, I think, you know, what we're really trying to do is get them to think.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you ask some higher order stuff, hopefully you're getting them to start to think about things, you know, instead of just sort of doing a rote routine, like this is how I get it done.
Yeah, and I think in the math world, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I've sat in math classes, I've taken math classes, but I've never really observed one. And when I think of higher order thinking questions, it kind of throws me off because you get a problem and you're to solve the problem. But I haven't correlated how do you ask a higher order thinking question out of trying to solve a problem.
Yeah, I think it's tough in the math world. It's also tough to really, honestly, you know, figure out where they're going to use this.
Right. So that's just well, we're sitting here talking. That's one question that comes to my mind. Thinking about higher level thinking is, and that's something I need to work on as an instructional leader. Don't get me wrong. About, you know, as observing as I've done you know, thinking about those higher order questions, higher order thinking questions. You know, how does that relate to the math world? That's something I'm struggling with just thinking about it. So I'm glad we talked about this question because I need to research into that myself.
Yeah. And then, you know, I sometimes just tell them that it's really, you know, there's a couple of things, but that it's just really about having confidence to solve a problem.
Right.
That what we're here to do is getting you confident that you can see what the problem is, understand what we're, like, what's the question that we're trying to answer, and what do we have given, and how is it that we can answer it. I said, because then maybe you go out in life and you say, especially nowadays, hey, I really feel like I can do the plumbing thing myself if I just Google it.
Right.
And look and say, how do I solve the plumbing problem?
So how are activities varied to address different ability levels and learning needs?
You know, a lot of that is just in the homework, you know. I mean, some of it's just the homework, where I try to give a few more difficult or challenging questions, more word problems, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so the kids that are higher level are going to be a little bit more challenged and not getting too much of those.
Right.
You know.
And we've talked about the Google Classroom. We've had the Ed Bricks that we've introduced that haven't used it a whole bunch. Yes, sir.
Oh, go ahead.
I need to see your algebra 1 TE real quick.
Oh, I think it's then that second step there.
That's the TE.
That's it, yeah.
Main boss shows up on us.
I know, it's checking on us.
But we've had the Ed Bricks that been introduced that we've used slightly and had some professional development on. So those are some ways that we've reached out and, you know, try to use to help the learning needs of the different individual learners. So that's good. How will students take initiative in their own learning to self-monitor in their progress?
Wow, that one's a tough one. Actually, you know, I think as a first-year teacher, that's the hardest thing I have is how do I get kids to be have self-initiative, especially if they're not naturally going to have self-initiative. And I don't have a good answer for it, I'm afraid. You know, I just try to go back and, you know, make sure if they didn't do their homework that, you know, why isn't that you didn't do your homework?
Right.
You
Well,
know,
and I think you stated
talk
earlier.
to them about it, you know.
I think you stated earlier in one of the earlier questions, you try to make the lessons fun. Not that they're always going to be fun, but you try to do your job in making them fun, engaging, and something that they can remember and relate to, especially if it's a STAR tested course. EOC to that effect, that, hey, I can remember this, I had fun doing it, whatever the problem may be, but this is what I remember at it, because we did something fun with that one.
Yeah, occasionally, I have had them have another one, which I don't do too often, but is, we have competitions, and I put them in 2 teams, and I say, okay,
Right.
I'm gonna put a question on the board, and the first team to get it right gets a point.
Right.
And then that kind of makes it fun, maybe every couple of 3 weeks, because it's hard to get math to be fun. It's no way can you do it all the time. It's not really the most fun activity.
Right.
There's a little tediousness to it.
Right, right. Well, Mr. Erger, I surely appreciate you taking the time to do this for me. I know it was one of the added things on, and you've got coursework for your classes and whatnot that you got to do. In closing, is there anything instructional-wise, as an administrator, that I can help you with?
Wow, let's see. I don't know. I mean, really my hardest thing again is when I've just got unmotivated kids that are probably a little slower to begin with. And it just seems it's almost impossible to motivate them.
Right.
And I tend to do a lot to help them. But recently I've decided, I'm just gonna, I mean grade-wise, where it's like, oh, I can curve the grade a little bit, or I give you a break because you missed it. And so
Taking into account, what could be going on in the kid's life.
yeah, sometimes there's things going on in their kid's life, and then, but lately I've thought, well, you probably at some point, some of these kids, you just have to give them an F once in a while.
Sometimes they have to learn on their own.
And it's like, you're gonna get an F if you don't turn in your homework, and you don't, Because I actually, after now being here a while, think that that's really more what we're doing. It's not so much that you're learning math or that you're learning history. It's like you're learning that we're gonna give you something to do, you're expected to do it at a certain time, and you need to kind of function and get to be like, okay, I do this, I do it at a certain time.
Right.
So that's especially here with this whole COVID thing, and that we're in a poor community, like figuring out that balance.
Right. There's
It's
definitely
tough.
a balance, and it is challenging. That is one, and I struggle with, because we share some of the same kids, so
Yeah.
I struggle too with motivating that kid. And I don't want to say it as it's like a chore, but you are trying to find that motivation to help motivate that kid and find something new to reach them.
Right.
Because we definitely we can't afford to lose one kid, so that is definitely challenging. But,
Yeah, and then there's been some great, I've had a couple of kids that, just like one in particular, I think what it is like I've known because people said, oh, wow, this guy. But, I got him to the board and he was really smart.
mm-hmm.
And I told him, I said, oh my gosh, you're really smart.
Yep.
And he goes, me?
And that's the thing.
And I'm like, no, well, you get this right away. I'm sitting here working with you and you're real smart. I still have trouble with him doing the assignments and making the thing.
Just trying to get it out of him.
But he actually he's never given me trouble,
Right.
since that day, and then I just occasionally say, I'll say to him, you should consider doing UIL in math.
Right. Finding another.
And he just kind of like, me? And I'm like, his grades don't reflect it exactly, but sometimes his test will.
Right.
He's got zeros in homework,
But
and it's like he makes an 84.
But an activity that could give him a purpose to help motivate,
Yeah, a little bit of more motivation, or just like if you can just be positive and tell them they're good.
Right.
It's like just try to be as positive as you can, which is, and sometimes I suffer. And I'm not too positive.
Well, again, I sure appreciate
Yeah,
you
sure.
doing this for us,
Anytime.
and I'm sorry about the COVID and me being out and not getting this done.
No,
quicker.
that's all right. I didn't know what happened to you. It's like, okay, I thought he was coming.
Yeah, but I sure appreciate you.
So, sure. Good luck.